Oh, Jem, if you had a superhero power, what would you pick?
Teleportation.
Sounds risky. You could teleport inside another human being or an object or a wall or a dinosaur.
I have a big head and little arms. I don't think this plan was very well thought out. The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. G'day and welcome to The Gaming Lovers episode 21. I'm Jem.
I'm Brendo, and we are the Gaming Lovers, back again for another week.
For a super edition of the podcast. Do-do-do-do. I'm so dorky.
Well, we already know that from the previous episodes.
I don't care. It's fun being dorky, and I don't want to live any other way, so... How you doing?
I'm not too bad. My run of health was short-lived, let's put it that way. If my voice cracks a little bit, or if my voice alters itself, like it seems to have done mid-sentence right now. I was feeling good post-chest infection, and it seems to be back a smidge.
It might not have ever really left. It might have just been going between phases. It happens to me sometimes when I get colds, and then it moves into the chest and there's more coughing, and that usually triggers asthma attacks. Yay!
Double whammy.
Yes. So that might be what happened.
It could be. It might have just been suppressed a little bit and
Moved
just
north.
working out the last little...
Moved south?
Well, I don't know. It depends.
Depends.
We're on the... we're in the southern hemisphere where house faces... north.
Let's not try to do that, okay?
The booth faces south, so really it's might be headed.
Okay. In this episode of the Gaming Lovers Podcast, we are going to be talking about superhero video games.
I wonder what triggered that discussion point.
Gee, it's not like there's any video game that came out recently that has been on our brain. Not at all.
Well, superheroes have never been more popular, I would say. There seems to be a new superhero movie coming out every 4 weeks or so.
Mm-hmm.
We got Netflix TV shows. We got series being dropped left and right on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
There's no shortage, let's put it that way. So why not discuss it later on in this very episode?
I think some people might have a bit of superhero fatigue. There's just so much of it out these days that it's hard to turn and not see superhero stuff. But that said, people still have a fascination with the genre, and if the story is good enough and it's still humanized, I think, regardless of whether that there are superpowers or other things at play in the story, if there's other human elements to carry it along, that's what's going to pull you in and make a great story.
That's very speciest of you. There's that human factor. What about Rocket the raccoon? He's not a human.
Oh, I don't know.
What about Groot? What about... I don't know. That's all I can think about. Who's
Off
not
the
a
top
human?
Of your head, most of the
Superman's not a human.
Most of the characters in Guardians of the Galaxy are not human. I think the only one that is half human is Star-Lord.
Let's not get too specific.
Anyway, we're going to get into that very, very soon. But, of course, it is time for gaming goals.
Gaming goals. Didn't you have a little
I
jingle?
totally forgot to grab that. And, yeah, so I have not used it ever since we said we'd do a jingle. So I'll get around to it eventually if I remember.
One of these days.
Yep. So what have you been playing this week?
Everything. I've been very busy. I allocated one of my days off to finishing up Yakuza 5. And, boy, when you get to the final part of those games, you think, yeah, we're pretty good. We've got this under control.
I've still got through the ringer in those.
6 hours left of my day. I'm in the finale chapter of the finale section. You get through part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. Then you get to the finale, but then the finale has chapters. So you get to the finale, and you think the end is near. And then you play for 2 hours with about 6 boss fights, no save points. It got to the point where I'm like, I really hope I can finish this before I just collapse in a heap and just pass out from fatigue.
Maybe that's why you're still sick.
I burnt every resource that my body had to give on beating a video game.
Yeah.
Time well spent. Now, I love any video game that has those little plot points where you're like, what is the purpose of this? This makes no sense. How is this relevant to the plot? And then it all ties together in a nice little bow. I mentioned I was playing as a baseballer in the final section of Yakuza 5. I've played as former head honchos of organised crime families, money lenders who are obviously going to be involved in the shady underworld, a former prisoner who's also been charged with murder, things like this. And then you play as a baseballer and a child idol. Sure, but it all ties together.
A nice mix.
It all ties together quite nicely.
Yeah.
And I will stand by my previous statement that every game in that series I have enjoyed more than the last.
Good. Well, you've got something to look forward to then.
I do. Now, having said that, you made the challenge to try to get through the entire series before we fly to Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to happen based off the size of these games.
Yeah.
I still have Yakuza 0 and then Yakuza 6 in the release order of the games.
Mm-hmm.
It's always tricky with those prequels when to play them, but I always try to play games in the order they were released if possible. However, now a little sidetrack here. I'm a wrestling fan. You're a wrestling fan.
Mm.
We like to see young talent get developed, and when their time is right, they get elevated up to the main event scene and everyone's happy. But it doesn't always happen that way because somebody just comes in at the last second and just gets elevated above them, and you get frustrated and you're just like, that's not fair. Why does this guy get to walk in the door and just get the top spot straight away? It's like what wrestling fans hate the most. That's the story.
Unless it's AJ Styles.
Of Brendo's backlog. I posted my backlog on social media, and no, I'm not going to play anything else because Spider-Man came out and I went and bought it on launch day, and I'm playing Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Do, 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 do. I better not sing it because copyright.
Let's not do that.
Enjoying it?
Very much so.
Living up to the hype?
Now, I will admit I love Spider-Man to start with.
Mm-hmm.
Probably my favourite superhero amongst the plethora of superheroes there are to pick from. I've played some Spider-Man games in the past. Now, they weren't A-plus games, previous Spider-Man games. The new Spider-Man, however, I'll talk more about it later on in the topic section because we're talking superhero games. So I'll gush about the new Spider-Man there. But I was pleasantly surprised because watching, I don't often watch trailers.
Yeah.
And I watch even less as far as development diaries and things like that where people, will play the game and explain the mechanics and things as demonstrations. Unless I'm on the fence about a game. If there's something I know that I will definitely get, I'll stay clear of all media if possible.
You don't want spoilers.
But the Spider-Man game, I had sort of a hesitation about whether it would actually deliver. And when I was watching footage, the combat almost felt too fast and uncontrolled. And I'm glad to say that although it is fast, it's very much controlled.
Yes.
And you have no shortage of abilities and tools at your disposal that you can throw out at a whim. Yes. They're all valid options. Whether you kick a guy in the face, or web him to a wall, or swing, or start floating in the air and punching guys up so you can air combat them, it's all good. And I love it.
Good. Well, we'll go into more depth about that very, very soon because I know you're chomping at the bit. You're really going to jump into it now. Nagging
about it.
You've done a couple of other stuff this week too?
Yeah, on a secondary note, Fire Emblem, I did a few more missions in that.
So you haven't completely thrown in the towel then?
No, I'm like 90% through the game. I have to see it through. I've only got a few chapters left. It's good to play while I'm burning time. Let's put it that way. Doctor's appointments. What better is there thing to do when you're waiting for a doctor? Oh, I'll just do something more painful than waiting. I'll play Fire Emblem Awakening. I make that game sound so bad.
I know. And it's such a popular game too. I'm
reiterating my points. The story is much better than it was. The combat I still find as bland as fake plastic toast. Let's put it that way.
Oh, that wouldn't be tasty.
And my other game has been Octopath Traveler. I haven't played much of that. Thanks, Spider-Man. Yakuza didn't help either. But it's still very much got affections all around from me.
Well, you've had a very busy week.
I have. I've played more games in the past week than I think I have in quite a while, which is nice because I'm a gaming lover.
Yeah, well, me too. Last week, I was very neglectful towards any games. I don't think I barely touched anything, mostly because of work and other stuff getting in the way. This week, I managed to do a lot of gaming. Partially because one game that I started that I had talked about potentially doing if I could find time, once I started it, I did not want to stop. To the point where I was playing, even though I had a huge headache because I'd been staring at the TV screen for hours and it was hurting my eyes. I got one of those like migraines, when like any light really hurts you. So you have to be in like a pitch black room and like not listen to anything just to try to get rid of it.
Those are terrible.
They are. And that's what I triggered and fought through for like another hour because I didn't want to stop playing this game.
What game was it? Don't leave us in suspense.
Detroit Become Human. Oh my goodness. And I had been excited for this, like it released months ago and we didn't play it right away because we didn't buy it. My sister Natalie did. And then she played it and then she passed it on to Mel and Steve to play so she could see what they did. And then it was my turn in the list. And you are up next, Brendo.
I am.
But oh my goodness, breathtakingly beautiful. And I remember a few years back, I think it was maybe 2013, when they released a short 2-3 minute video of an android named Kara who was being built. And, as they're going through the test run, making sure that everything's functioning okay, she's becoming self-aware and starts asking questions she's not supposed to. And so they're like, oh, quickly disassemble her, and she begs not to be shut down.
It's a little awkward and uncomfortable. Your appliances start requesting, no, please don't.
Please don't turn me off. Imagine if your TV did that. No, I want to stay on. It would be weird. But that short, which was directed by David Cage, who made these games as well as Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, that I think at the time was just a test to kind of test the waters and see how that would be received. And I wonder if it was a way for him to get maybe the green light to start this next game, which I think, in my opinion, is the best out of the games that I have played from David Cage.
Oh, big praise.
Yeah.
You've played quite a few of them.
Yeah, not all. Haven't played Fahrenheit. But
also
I've
known
played...
as Indigo Prophecy in other territories.
There you go.
Quantic Dream have a habit of doing that. They don't actually show people what they're working on straight out of the gates.
Yeah.
Instead, they show what their new animation software, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
What their new graphical engines, what sort of actors they have in the bag. And they will make a little tech demo. Kara was one of them.
Yep.
And everyone's like, oh, it looks like Quantic Dream's new game is about androids. And then, no, it wasn't. It was Beyond Two Souls.
Just a test. And that's what they said. They kept saying, no, this isn't actually going to be a game. But then Kara ends up being in the game. And that's not a spoiler because it's in the game trailers and stuff like that. Exactly. So I'm like, that I feel like I can reveal, but it's the same face and the same voice, just slightly better graphics than that teaser test trailer, I guess, that they released.
I look forward to the next full release then about that sorcerer on the movie set with his little goblin friend. Do you remember that one that they made?
I do. That was a while ago, but that was really funny. I love things like that are a little bit more out of the box. And it's a great way to see if there is an audience, because if it gets buzz, like when that trailer released with Kara, I thought it was a game trailer and I sent it to you going, oh my goodness, this next game looks amazing. And then you crushed me by saying, no, Jem, that's actually not what that is. Yeah. And I was devastated.
Just one of those little ideas, little things getting revealed to the gaming audience. And sometimes that first impact, you're just like, yes, this is going to be good. Like I say Horizon Zero Dawn's my key example of that. Within 30 seconds of that trailer rolling, I'm like, I have no idea what this game is, but it looks fantastic and I want to play it.
And it was an interesting idea. It had you hooked.
Yeah. And the Kara tech demo was exactly the same.
Yes, absolutely. And For me, like it's not a long game to play. You can finish that depending on how well you play. If you can keep everyone alive, you play for longer. If you accidentally kill, or maybe not accidentally kill everybody, then the game will go much faster.
How long did it take you, do you estimate?
About between maybe 11 and 12 hours all up.
And how many sessions was that for you?
3. So that's
Pretty
why
reasonable.
I finished it pretty quickly. I actually live streamed it on Twitch the first time and didn't realize that I hadn't set my settings to save the video after streaming. So the
That is
the
annoying.
few people that did watch while it was live, and I did have a few people watching as I was playing through and freaking out at getting used to the new controls and stuff like that. They got to enjoy listening to my nervous ramblings, but unfortunately it didn't get saved. So I'm going to have to think of a new setup, and maybe rather than using Twitch, might use YouTube, because I don't think Twitch saves them for very long, even when they do.
I think it's only a few weeks.
Yeah, so I might switch to what you use and have it saved to YouTube instead. Might be a bit more accessible. Might not have the same reach as far as instant watch. Like, you get a lot more people watching in the moment on Twitch, which is what I think is the appeal for those who do stream on Twitch. For those who do live stream and listen to the podcast, we'd love to hear what you think are the better alternatives out of all the different options out there. There's Mixer as well and a few other different places.
Yeah, I wouldn't call ourselves professional streamers.
No,
We just do
no.
it for a bit of fun.
Yeah.
To save the memories on our archives.
And I guess to add some more interactivity with this podcast, we feel like it gives you guys another channel to listen to our antics and to see if we're actually any good at these games that we love so much. Not
Now,
always.
from what I recall of this past week, 6-hour gaming sessions wasn't the only thing that caused a headache for you this week.
No. I have mentioned many times I play a lot of games on my phone as I'm just going about my business. And one game in particular that I've been very hooked on lately has been Pokemon Quest. And I love playing it, but I finally unlocked the boss island, which has Mewtwo on it. And
We would expect nothing less.
I thought I was the right level. I had the levels that it recommends that you have to play that section, and I still got smashed. So, and Mewtwo mocks you. He's unlike any of the other Pokemon because he can talk. He smack talks you, and when you lose and you come back for more, he teases you, and you're like, okay, well, thanks, Mewtwo. Just what I needed.
That'll boost your self-confidence.
So I was a little upset, but I've been slowly trying to get key Pokemon, my strongest ones, as high level as I possibly can, and we'll take that sucker down.
Well, hopefully you can succeed, where no doubt others have failed.
Well, yeah, with games like that, it's lots of grinding and getting the levels up just so you can beat a certain boss. But more about that is collecting the Pokemon is half the fun, I think, of cooking up little pots of stew to lure Pokemon to my island.
That sounds so predatory.
It sounds really sus.
Oh, that sounds so nasty.
Oh, it is really sus. And I did some co-op. Well, I don't know if it's co-op, more competition gaming, but Muddle Dash, which is a game that we discovered fairly recently. That's on the Switch.
I would hardly call that co-op. That's definitely a competitive game.
Competitive. Multiplayer, you can do local, and I think you can play online as well against lots of other people if you have a Switch. It is not an expensive game at all, and we highly recommend it. It is a lot of fun. You can play that with friends, and it gets
The
quite
perfect pick up
aggressive.
and play.
Yes, the controls are intuitive, and I know we've talked about it before, but I just wanted to give it some love again. And
Just the quick recap
Yeah.
on its content.
So you play, they look kind of like little squids, colourful squids that wear party hats or like a shoe on their head, if you so choose.
Any sort of
I
headwear
love
do.
little weird quirky customization, things like that. I
Uh-huh.
think they add a little bit to the game. And your goal is there is one birthday present that you fight over with your friends, and whoever can get that present to the end, to the party, wins. And the bouncer kicks everybody else out.
Fantastic.
Simple premise.
As all parties should be. If you don't bring a present, goodness.
That's what we needed.
What do we even invite you for?
Have that at weddings. Oh, I'm sorry. No present. Get out of here. Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo Jem. That's BRENDOJEM. So, is Yuri Lowenthal the ideal Spider-Man, you think?
Well, for those who don't know who that is, that's the voice actor cast as Spider-Man, Peter Parker, in the new Spider-Man game. And if you have played Insomniac Games' Sunset Overdrive on the Xbox One, you pretty much know what his voice is going to sound like as Spider-Man, just with less profanity.
Yes, Spider-Man's a bit more kid-friendly. And what I found really funny, I remember when there was a trailer, maybe it was E3, they were showing some gameplay, and he's talking to his police informant, whose name is Yuri. And so he's basically talking, or every time he shouts Yuri, it's like he's shouting his own name.
It would be strange. You'd probably have like an identity crisis trying to call out your own name to another person.
Yes. Jam! It's a good thing that, Metal Gear Solid, David Hayter's name's not Snake.
Well, Snake's name is actually David.
What?
You get that in the end cutscene of Metal Gear Solid 1. Yes.
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious.
Meryl asks
Do you
what
remember
Snake's name, and his name says his name is David.
That's so funny. I wonder if they added that in because of the voice actor. Because that sounds like something Kojima would do as a little Easter egg.
Could be.
So,
Speaking of Kojima, he caught up with Conan O'Brien this week. I don't know how that went, but it came across my news feed.
I think I remember seeing that on Twitter. Wasn't he asking to be in one of his games or to work with him or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's been stranger things planned for that Death Stranding game anyway than having Conan O'Brien show up as a cameo.
Oh my goodness. Could you imagine? Because doesn't he do like those segments on his show where he tries to play games and he's a clueless gamer?
He truly is a clueless gamer.
Yes. I don't even know if I'd call him a gamer. I think that's the point. But wouldn't it be interesting to see him play Death Stranding? Because of all the games that he's played, that would mess with his head so bad.
He would probably not understand and just bag it like all the other games complex that I like, and he just poops all over them.
He bags pretty much any game that comes across his way, though. That's the gimmick of the whole segment.
Well, we are the gaming lovers. We do not
Exactly.
approve of such tactics.
I don't like people being naive and silly when it comes to games and giving them a bad name. But at the same time, I respect that he's putting a spotlight on games that is maybe reaching an audience that wouldn't otherwise know about some of these games.
Yeah, but on the same point, he's revealing these games to an audience that normally wouldn't get that, but he's putting them in a negative light.
Not always. He has his friend who's trying to explain them, and he's painting himself as the buffoon to an extent. Like, that he acknowledges that he's not very good at this. Coming from someone who's worked in the industry, like, you can tell when people are deliberately putting it on for the sake of a segment.
But still, if you have your favourite TV show and somebody on one of those shows simply points to it and says, this is garbage, this is ridiculous, I don't understand this at all, nobody should watch that.
They're dead to me.
Exactly. That's why I don't appreciate Clueless Gamer.
Trust me, I know. But my foot's in both. I'm Switzerland.
Your feet are in every camp. You're one of those little squids from Muddle Dash at the moment. We are trying to have a discussion about superhero games,
so sidetracked.
and we're here
you brought
yammering
up
on
first.
Conan O'Brien.
Back to Spider-Man, because you have been playing that pretty much since you bought it on launch day.
I made the severe mistake of buying it before work, on my way to work, and then had the agonising wait of running down the clock before I could get home, and then I had to install the game and download the patches, and then I could play.
Yes. And didn't you have lots of delays at work that day too?
Oh, yes. Of all the days. I drive trains for a living, and, big surprise, the trains were delayed on the day that I was clamouring to get home to play Spider-Man.
Gee, that never happens with trains in Melbourne. They're always on time. I can't believe they were delayed.
Blame the...
I don't mean to tease. You don't kill me.
It's not my fault. I just drive them. I just drive the trains.
I know.
I can only go as fast as the signals will let me. Or the police will let me, in that case.
Yes. No, I know most of the time it's pretty much out of your control. But with Spider-Man, have there been any trains in New York City or subway, I guess, stations that you've had to play in yet? Or has it just been all skyscrapers?
As a train driver, I had the embarrassing fact of the first time I died in the Spider-Man game was where I was in a subway tunnel, didn't realise a train was actually going to come through the subway tunnel, and Spidey got squished.
Oh, no, like a bug.
So that did not go well. I did capture that footage, though, because it's kind of amusing that I'm looking for a little collectible and I'm looking around and then I turn the camera and there's a train. I'm like, well, I didn't. Oh, dear.
It's like a deer in the headlights.
So, yes, there are trains in every game I play, it seems. And I play games to escape the train aspect of my life, not to see them in their digital 3D world. Having said that, I do really want to get Train Sim World. No, I don't. That's fabrication, complete fabrication.
The interesting thing too not interesting, but like the annoying, I guess, common factor is every time trains do come into video games, they tend to be a dangerous thing. Like something happens, an incident involving trains, whether you're about to be squished or a friend is about to be squished or, the tracks have been blown up and everyone in the train is going to be derailed.
There's always sparks coming off those wheels, which doesn't quite happen in real life. It's not quite that dramatic.
Sorry, guys. Here we're going to disillusion you all about the reality of trains. But yeah, so when things at work happen in a bad sense, then it puts you off certain video games because they've got trains in them. So it's like, okay, where are all the games that don't have trains in them? Those are the ones that are safe to play for the next month. But thankfully, I'm pretty sure Detroit Become Human doesn't have any trains.
Well, you couldn't have them in that because they'd become self-aware and they'd be deciding what they want to do. I don't want to go to
the cars in there are actually really interesting, though. So when you do finally get around to playing that, I want to know what you think of them.
We will discuss that more next week.
Yes, so going back to Spider-Man again.
You cannot stay on topic today.
No, so good luck with that. I want to know, from what I've heard, because I haven't had a chance to play Spider-Man yet, you see, I've watched you play a little, but the ratio between Spider-Man and Peter Parker, what would you say that's at from what you've played so far?
As far as actually playing as Spider-Man, you do the majority of the open world stuff, any mission that's in the open world area, which is a lovely rendition of New York, Manhattan. Mm-hmm. I've finally been to Times Square now.
There you go.
Just in a digital format. And gave people finger guns going, hey, how you doing today? Good to see you.
And you've been to Avengers Tower.
Yeah, all sorts of little landmarks in there, which are obviously 100% accurate of real New York City. And don't try to crush my illusion, because that's what I think is real.
Well, I'm sure that New York smells a lot better than the real one.
Yeah, thankfully. I only got the basic PS4 that doesn't have the smell-o-vision.
Wasn't that one of the VR? We're back when we were talking about gaming gimmicks early on in the podcast with the VR. One of the first ones they had
sensory
included.
Overload.
That would be strange if video games started including that. My word. I
didn't get to answer your question because you took us
ratio.
off topic again.
You took forever to answer the question.
Smelling urine. I assume it was urine you were getting at.
Sorry. Really bad pun. Okay, so ratio Peter Parker to Spider-Man, would you say the majority Spider-Man, just a little bit of Peter Parker?
For the most part, when you start a new story mission, if you're not actively having something dramatic happen straight away, you might be going to meet up with someone as Peter. There'll be a little scene and you will play in that area, a lot more smaller indoors sort of section as Peter Parker. However, as you are flinging between buildings by your webbing and trying to chase down the fleeing bandits who have just robbed a bank, poor Peter Parker has his everyday life. So people are still calling him. His Aunt May's calling him on the phone. His work's calling him, asking him why he's late. His mentor is calling him, asking some questions about their latest science experiment. And poor Peter Parker, while he's trying to fight off bad, he's just trying to act as cool and calm as he can on the phone. Everything's cool, just watching an action movie. That's what all the sounds are. Yeah, I'll call you back soon. I've got to go, bye. Just trying to balance work and life as a normal human is kind of tough enough. And if you had to throw in superhero antics on the side in secret, would be even more complex.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
It's interesting to see him because he's obviously a little bit older because most Spider-Man stories revolve around him being in high school, you know, because that's the age when it all starts.
The origin story.
Exactly.
Done to death by about 16 different mediums for every superhero.
Yes. And probably none more so than Spider-Man in the last decade or two.
Did you know he was bitten by a radioactive spider? It's news to me.
Is it interesting to see him slightly older and have they given much, would you say, a clue of him maturing into his new role as like this Spider-Man that protects his city?
Yeah, what I like about this game is that it's its own thing. It doesn't try to ham-fist its way and be limited by the existing Marvel Cinematic Universe. It doesn't try to follow on from the previous games. We've had Spider-Man games in the past few generations, and although they were relatively good, one of the amusing things that people found hilarious in one of the earlier ones on the PS2, I believe, was that although you can sling webs between buildings, Spider-Man could keep on swinging when there was no buildings anywhere near him. So I don't know if he's just attaching himself to low-flying aircraft or what's going on, but
It's magic.
he was just like a puppet on strings. So that's kind of funny. When you've got something like Spider-Man that has had so many different comic editions, so many things, so many different first girlfriends, depending on the different canon, it's sort of like you're playing this going, okay, there's Mary Jane, for example. Okay, what's their relationship in this? And the game sort of tells it, but it tells it in such a subtle way. It's almost like you pick up the clues before they flat out establish the people's relationships between the characters, which is always cool. You know, if it's spelled out for you, it just feels like you're being beaten over the head sometimes. So when you're there, actually, if you get rewarded for paying attention to the way they interact. It's
Absolutely.
Cool.
I think a lot of superhero games have been, or just games in general, are learning from other games that are successful. But you look at the Arkham trilogy in particular and see how that changed the genre, I think, a little bit. You know, they're a little darker. The combat has gotten so much more fluid with the combos and things that you can do, as well as the puzzles that are put together. There is a lot of lore and it's rich. And I think the thing that I love that you can kind of really see in these games now is that it's all these people that have just grown up loving these characters, whether it's from the comic books or movies or past video games even. And they want to pay homage and make it even better. And you see that love of these characters and the world that, whether it's Stan Lee or other incredible writers made many years ago. And to see them treated with that love and respect also echoes through these games. They're all building upon each other and getting better and better and better. So it's really nice to see.
Yeah, those Batman Arkham games definitely paved the way for a tight combat style. Games like the early Assassin's Creed games, you could argue, are almost identical. You have different attacks. If an enemy's going to attack you, you press the counter button. But the Arkham games, you got like the big blue lightning bolts basically above your head saying, hey, time to counter. And it just makes it so much easier because otherwise you have to try to pay severe, minute attention to enemy animations. And sometimes when there's 6 enemies on screen all vying for your attention, you just get blindsided. So having that big burst makes you go, okay, I push this button now. And Spider-Man 2018 has that as well. You get the big spider sense. I'm about to get hit. Spider-Man himself doesn't actually counter that much, but he is very adept at dodging.
Yes, he does his little flips. It's very acrobatic. And I think that's where that fluidity really comes into play because it's almost like he's dancing and fighting the way he moves around his opponents. So that was really fun to watch. How about the swinging aspect? I remember a quote from one of the developers from Insomniac Games saying that what they wanted to nail and make sure that they got down more than anything was that the experience of swinging through New York City and make that feel real.
Yep.
Did you reckon they nailed that?
Well, the good thing is, with the other Spider-Man games that they had, if you swung into an object, you would stop. You'd go splat, as you probably would in a real life situation. If you're swinging at 80 miles an hour into a wall, you're probably just going to stop dead in your tracks. Now, with this one, it feels a little more arcadey because if you swing into a wall, Spidey will just start running up the wall, which is great because if you're trying to get from A to B...
Keeps momentum up. And
you botch a little landing, you're not just going to be halted completely. You just keep going. Sometimes it feels a little gamey, to put it into a simple term, but in my opinion, I think it's definitely the right choice to make because if you're trying to get to your objective, you don't want to be having to have pinpoint precision with your acrobatics to do it properly. Otherwise, you are going to take forever to get there. You might as well just walk on the street. But the swinging is great fun. You've got different heights you can go at. I found super fast is to keep releasing it a little bit early than you would expect at a very low height. And it just feels like you're absolutely flying through that city streets. To the point where people are dodging out of the way and yelling mean words at Spidey because, hey, wouldn't you if some guy came swooping down 30 centimetres from your head?
Hey, I'm walking here.
Exactly. It's New York. They have short tempers, I'm sure.
Yes. To be fair, they get attacked so often in movies. Like, come on. But I'm glad that it is being received well. I think I don't know why, but I get nervous for some game releases. Like, I want them to do well. And I've got no, like, slice of the pie or no piece of the action or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But you still just want it to do well and to see things flourish and succeed. And I think the more wonderful games that we have, the better it is for us as consumers too. We keep getting great games to play and enjoy. And as an industry, I think it will continue to grow and get better. So I'm excited. We've had some pretty great games in the last year or two.
I agree 100%.
Especially PlayStation exclusives. My goodness. Because this is another PlayStation exclusive, right?
Correct.
We've had Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War. This is just in like the last year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been knocking it out of the park. So,
very much so.
And interestingly enough, I'm pretty sure those three that I just mentioned, not owned by EA.
Definitely not.
All single-player campaigns.
Definitely correct.
All really well received and did incredibly well. Just going to leave that there, EA. Okay, moving on.
Single-player games are not dead. Definitely not.
Still alive. Continuing on with our theme of superhero games, one that I actually surprisingly really enjoyed was Injustice.
The creators of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
A fighting game with a large DC superhero and supervillain roster.
Yes. And
sounds like a recipe for success.
Because I love the TV show Arrow. It was really fun to hear Stephen Amell actually play the Green Arrow in a video game.
Very cool.
That's so cool. So that was a nice little Easter egg in there. And, you know, it's subtle and he does a good job and it's kind of like a nice little nod. And so things like that I really appreciate. The story was actually kind of interesting to play through the story mode. I think that's all I really did. I didn't try to do much else. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that and just seeing the animations of, like, there are certain bits when you get to do a certain combo where your character would kind of knock them from the stage that you're playing on and into another one. And it had been a while since I'd played any fighting games, and I don't remember any of them doing that in previous ones that I have played personally. So that was like a novelty. I'm like, oh, cool, we've moved somewhere else and did this cool animation. That was fun. So, and seeing an evil Superman was really fascinating.
That was a nice little twist on that narrative tale.
Yeah.
Now, with in the world of the movie, Marvel movies have been hitting home run after home run, whereas, to be fair, the DC universe struggled a bit more.
Yeah. But TV series, they've done really well.
Now, for me, when I played Injustice, there goes my voice again for everyone playing along on this podcast. When I played Injustice, I didn't know who half the roster even was because I had not paid much attention to the DC world as a young man. I had more experience in the Marvel universe. However, that's the sort of thing where I do enjoy researching. Okay, who is this guy? Oh, he's a bad guy in this world. Okay. I have no idea who this person is or research. Oh, they're part of a group of which this person and this person are also in. Excellent. And just getting to know them. You get character bios on some of the menus and things like that, which is always helpful.
Yeah.
And learning their movesets can be fun. Just like any fighting game. If you play any fighting game, you don't know who these people are the first time you pick it up. For me, it was the same with Injustice. But knowing that there's so much material to research if you would like to, it's very endearing.
Another thing that I really liked was them bringing back some of the voice actors from like the animations and things like that. So it wasn't just, a nod to Stephen Amell, but Tara Strong coming back to play Harley Quinn, who, she's pretty much the voice of Harley Quinn at this stage. Like, she's done like so many different versions or iterations of her in video games as well as animated TV series and movies. So she's kind of just as iconic as Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill in those roles. So having her in there and a lot of my favourite voice actors playing different ones, I was like, this is so much fun.
Who would have thought Luke Skywalker would make the best Joker voice of all time?
He definitely has set the standard on many levels as an actor. The mark of a good act.
Goodness me.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side. And you could be featured in the next podcast.
Well, just like every other franchise in history, whether it be Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, there are plenty of Lego games. There are Marvel and there are DC Lego games. On the Marvel side, you have Marvel superheroes, you have the Avengers, and on the DC side, you have what started off as simply Lego Batman, but has then grown on to Lego Batman 2 and 3, and then 3 has like the ridiculous cast of characters from the DC world. And even on the horizon is DC supervillains.
Yeah.
Which should be a lot of fun.
Just like the roller coaster. There's a roller coaster at Movie World, which is in Queensland, on the Gold Coast here in Australia, and it's pretty awesome.
The DC Villains Hyper Coaster.
Yeah, where the Joker has taken control.
I really shouldn't let that man control a thrill ride. I'm just
he
saying.
He actually controls 2 of them in that park. He has the
Who's in
Arkham
control
Asylum,
here?
where you are literally strapped into seats that are made to look like electrocution chairs.
Made even worse by the fact you can ride that roller coaster with VR goggles on your head.
Yes.
If that's not a recipe
That
for
would
nausea,
be
I
so
don't know what
sickening.
is.
That ride hurts my head enough without VR goggles.
Agreed.
I come off with a headache every time.
Well, for the 6th time this episode, I'm going to say let's get us back on track.
Sorry.
And not the tracks of roller coasters. The Lego games made by Traveller's Tales have no shortage of quality. Pretty much all those games are good. They're great for families or if you've got a small child that you want to play games with.
Yes.
Or just, spouse like we have. They're good,
A lot
fun,
of fun
cooperative games. You get to destroy pretty much everything in any given level. They have a ridiculously large cast of characters you can unlock. And the more you play, the more multipliers you unlock, which lets you earn more studs, which are the currency, which lets you unlock more stuff, which gives you a higher multiplier. So you can unlock more things because you get like, oh, look at me. I've just taken one walk through this level. I've got 6 million studs. Fantastic.
I think we have like almost every iteration of like those Lego games, but the only one we've beaten from start to finish
100%.
was
all achievements.
the Star Wars one, the first one. And then that was back when the mechanics were different. You couldn't split screen when you went in different directions. If you went too far one way and if you went one way and I went the other, one of us would get stuck and like pulled towards the other person,
Which made some of the platforming a bit dangerous.
And sometimes you got pushed off the edge because you weren't both going in the same direction. So they've fixed that over the course of the years to make it a little more explorer friendly.
And the Marvel Superheroes Lego game was the first to have like an open world, I believe, which was also in things like the Lord of the Rings game. Had more open sections, not just a level from start to finish.
Yeah.
More to explore, more freedom. You can fly if you pick a superhero who has flying powers. I only played Lego Batman 2 when it was a PlayStation Plus freebie on my PlayStation Vita. I still enjoyed that quite a bit. But it was very strange playing it solo because I was so used to playing all those Lego games with you. So it was very lonely.
They are a lot of fun to play co-op.
They are indeed. Another fun superhero co-op series, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and also the X-Men Legends series. Both can handle many players, and it's more of a top-down sort of view. It does feel a bit more like the feeling you get when you play the Ninja Turtles games from the Super Nintendo. The 4 players, or the Scott Pilgrim, for example. 4 players, all beaten up enemies, but you've got your roster of superheroes to choose from. I mentioned a few podcasts ago, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the first game I ever fell asleep playing. Not a knock on the quality of the gameplay. I was trying to play as much as I could because I'd rented it and wanted to milk every last second, and I may have pushed myself a little too far in the hour of 2 to 3 a.m.
Yeah, I think the theory of you getting sick or staying sick because of video games is getting more and more validity with every story that you share.
I wish I was a superhero with my power of unlimited video game endurance.
Or it'd just be like Wolverine and just keep healing so you never actually get sick. That would work.
Yeah, that probably would be smarter than just
to be able to play video games.
What a power I have.
Well, let's see. Another notable one, ever since Disney officially has bought out Marvel, there's Disney Infinity. And with that comes the Marvel figurines coming into that. So I guess it's kind of tied in.
Toys to life, they call it. Which, as a kid, would have blown my mind. The fact that you can buy a toy, you put it on its stand, and that is now who you can play as in the game. I would have begged and pleaded.
Driven your parents nuts.
Every one of them.
Yes. It's been bad enough trying to keep the Lego Dimensions one under control. It's been like only favorite characters you're allowed to get the expansion packs for. Not every single one. But yes, I mean, it's kind of cool. Like the figurines look good, but at the same time, man, that's a cash cow.
Well, that's pretty much what it's designed for. But it is also kind of cool that you have that, again, open gameplay. It's a big toy box to play in, and your toys can be used in the game.
And in real life.
And they look good on a shelf too. Yes. I've never owned Disney Infinity. I'm not endorsing Disney Infinity on a gameplay level because I haven't played it.
Yeah.
But the concept is cool, even though I scoffed at it ridiculously when they were first announced.
But they've sold very well, so who's laughing now? There's quite a few on like the list. There's a plethora of superhero games out there in many iterations. Anytime a new movie has come out, basically there's been a game to come along with it. Thankfully, in the more recent years, those games have been better because they've been conscious enough of the brand and the power of those names that they've wanted to put a good game linked to it these days and not just a quick money maker because a movie's coming out.
Traditionally, any movie-based video game that is directly tied in
to a movie
is fairly bad.
Yeah.
And there were quite a significant stretch where, I hate to say, I really am pained to say this, but Sega were responsible for making an Iron Man game which was trash, a Thor game that was trash, and thankfully we seem to have moved out of that era.
Yes, thank goodness. In the last, I won't even say decade, because even in early, like around 2010, 2011, there were still some pretty trashy titles being released, like with Thor and stuff like that. But my goodness, when you really go back, like into the 90s even, there were some pretty shocking titles that came out that were associated with our favourite superheroes. Some on consoles that you wouldn't even necessarily imagine, like The Flash on the Game Boy. I'm just trying to imagine how that would work.
My goodness. How would you even... I guess you could just slow down the enemies to create the illusion that the Flash is moving quicker?
Does it sound like a boring game, playing as a character that all they do is run really fast?
Oh, there's no room for that in the video game industry, I'm sure of it. There's absolutely no reason why anyone would actually enjoy rolling around at the speed of sound.
Although, interesting side fact, because You know how sometimes on like Facebook and stuff, people put
Stupid things.
they'll put like a little thing like who would win a race out of these characters, like notorious things like Quicksilver, the Flash, all the like notorious fast like superheroes, Dash from the Incredibles.
Mm-hmm. All my favourite superhero power, by the way. Obviously
Speed.
influenced by Sonic the Hedgehog.
But interesting, Sonic is faster than all of them. From what they document, what has been noted down as their top speed in all of their different laws, Sonic is faster than the Flash, he's faster than Quicksilver, faster than Dash, or at least as far as I know in recent times has been established. And then comes to mind the idea that he's always constantly chasing down Eggman in his little machine. So does that mean that Eggman's machine is faster than Sonic?
Well, in some of the early games, you destroy Eggman's thing and he runs off screen to escape, and you can't catch him.
Wow.
So Eggman, it may only be a sprint, but that large man can move. Let me
With his short, stubby legs. So there you go. Eggman is the fastest Eggman out of everything.
Move over, Usain Bolt.
Yes. I love looking into things like that. I'm sorry, I keep derailing us.
It's all right. It's still on topic. We're still talking about Sonic. What? That's not the topic?
Superheroes.
Sorry.
But it does remind me of some other superheroes in that sense. You mentioned that you would want super speed as your superpower.
Yeah, but as long as you get the... All right, to be fair, I always complain when you choose teleportation because I'm like, it's such a dangerous superpower. You won't be able to tell where you're
Every
going.
superpower is dangerous.
You could end up in a wall or half in a rock somewhere. You know, it would be difficult. But then you state the fact that, no, you can mentally see where you're going to go, so
Yes.
it's fine. You can...
I have that little asterisk of if I have teleportation in this, hypothetical world, then that means I can envision where I'm going and make sure I teleport somewhere safe, and that's
then
also not
safe.
going to startle people.
Oh, you're a very polite
Yeah,
superhero.
well, you don't want to appear in the group of people and give them heart attacks.
Try to avoid that in any given
Or,
situation.
reveal that I have this awesome power. 'cause
Well, I
I
would
get arrested.
love super speed, but also, again, with the caveats that A, my body could handle the rapid acceleration and deceleration without leaving my skeleton behind. The fact that my reflexes would be quick enough and my brain could work fast enough that
And
I could
your
actually
eyes.
process the fact of where I'm going, how I'm turning, such and such. And yes, in the Sonic games, Sonic can run across the top of water when going at full speed, and I would think that would just be awesome.
What about like dust and things like that? Because dust and bugs, when you go at high speeds, like if you're driving fast on the freeway, you get a lot of bugs. So, imagining running really fast, you would have to cope with bugs as well as a lot of dust particles potentially hitting you really hard.
Now, my eyes would have like a ceramic coating so that just everything just washes off. It'd be very, very clean.
Things like that always, I'm like going, but how would that work?
Goggles! It's not that difficult.
But the Flash doesn't wear goggles. Like sometimes he does, but not always. So there are things like that. I'm just like going, okay, slowly.
I love how you're not hung up on the fact that he can run like the speed of light, but the fact that you get stuff in his eyes. That's just so unrealistic.
I'm just, I'm saying if that were possible,
I know.
then this means that would be an issue. That is all I'm saying.
I get ya.
Okay. We were discussing the nitpicking, and that was my concern. Anyways,
We've been stuck on this Marvel and DC trip for quite a while.
yeah.
Let's move away from that little sphere. I know it's our comfort zone. When we talk about superheroes,
That's what you think of, though. It's
we're
kind of
very
the go-to.
comfortable in our Marvel DC realms.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is one game series, superhero based,
Mm-hmm.
completely original, that is not DC or Marvel,
Mm-hmm.
that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Infamous.
Ah, yes. The most recent one being Infamous Second Son, which was one of the first games you could get on PlayStation 4 when that launched.
Correct.
That was really good. And you have the choice to play as a hero or a villain. You choose your path.
You kind of like when you get those moral choices in games, don't you?
Mm-hmm. And it makes for a good replay value too. You can go down one side for one playthrough and then go the other way for the next. So it makes it interesting. But yeah, you get superpowers. I think in the original Infamous, is it electricity that you can control?
That was the sort of game where, with a new console generation, with the PlayStation 3 just released, Infamous was launched, and it was pretty darn great. And I liked the way that all your traditional video game powers were translated into using electricity. You can grind on electric rails because he's generating the electricity from the wire and, jetting away from it. It makes sense. He can hover by using the electrical magnetic pulses from his hands to sort of steer himself. It makes sense. He can shoot electric missiles that lock on because it's electric, and that's magnetism. And I don't know, I'm not a physicist. But it was cool. And the story in that game, no spoiler beats here, but that story went places I didn't expect it to, and it was darn great. And the fact that in Infamous 2, set in the fictional city of New Marais, which I always thought was funny because you have a friend with a very similar name, you can choose to play good or you can choose to play bad. There are good NPCs that you can do their missions their way to help them progress your goodness, or you can do the opposite and follow the bad ones. And also there's little side activities. You do the good ones, you do the bad ones. It influences your karma level. The fact that beating up a street performer and shutting them up is considered an evil thing to do, I completely disagree with that. I walk through the city of Melbourne quite frequently on my meal breaks.
So many buskers.
I hear some atrocious performances and would like nothing more than to shoot an electric missile at them.
But you would get arrested. That's the point.
Not if I could jump on the tram lines and jet away.
Yeah, there's some pretty interesting street performers in our city, that's for sure.
Now, you mentioned Infamous Second Son, which also blew my mind, being an early PlayStation 4 game with the graphical leap that they had made. Sucker Punch Studios did an awfully good job.
So good. Like, I remember there was one cutscene we were watching, and there was, I can't remember the character's name.
The muscles in the woman's face.
Yeah, the woman's face. I think she might be like his grandma or auntie or something.
Blew my mind.
And you can see just the slight twitch, like when she's like concentrating, and just that subtle shift in her face. And I'm like, man, that was really good motion capture, and it's so beautifully portrayed. And sometimes when games do that, it doesn't always translate digitally very well. Sometimes the muscle jerks that look natural in real life come across really almost creepy when they're digitized. And that wasn't the case at all. And for something that was like a launch game was really, really good. So, yeah, I enjoyed playing that. And I thought it was cool that his power was more just, he was kind of like Rogue from X-Men, where he could absorb the power, but he didn't have to keep contact with them and slowly suck their life out.
That's a hassle.
He basically had to kind of beat them in combat, and then he could pinch their power, but they would still keep theirs, but he would then have multiple.
And what I really
powers.
dug about those powers, they were not your traditional powers either. Normally people are like, I can shoot lightning, or I can
manipulate fire or something like that. But I think there was smoke, neon lights, television sets and stuff. Like, it was really unique.
And concrete. Control concrete. What more could you ask
Well,
for?
in an urban warfare, concrete could be quite handy.
There's plenty of it around.
Yes. It can make for good missiles as well as armour.
Yeah, I really enjoyed. To be fair, it probably did feel a little bit hollow, that open world, but as far as the story and the gameplay, I quite enjoyed Second Son. My number one cosplay was as Delson Rowe.
Yes.
And
you got named as one of the best cosplays as Supernova, I believe, that year. You were so happy about that.
I was very happy. I looked pretty good.
I have to post a photo of that, I think.
Maybe we will.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/thegaminglovers.
Just one more quick game that just popped into my mind. On the PC many years ago, there was I don't even know how you'd really explain it, a half strategy game, squad-based strategy, with a bunch of superheroes that you've probably never heard of called the Freedom Force. And that was my introduction to the term Minuteman. I had no idea what they even were before that game.
Well, we're not exactly big on American history.
But you learnt that from Fallout 4, I would assume.
Yeah, that was the first time I heard the term.
But there was the Minuteman, there was the Silver Bullet, all these other traditional sounding superheroes. It had like a 1950s art style. I believe in the sequel you fought Nazis, which is always fun. Freedom Force versus the Third Reich. How could you go wrong with that? Yeah, that was just like a fun little top-down. You're controlling a small squad of superheroes as they work their way through beating baddies. I fell in love with that game. Just wanted to give it a little shout-out. I haven't played it in years. It's the exact sort of game that I would re-buy on things like GOG.com, good old games, just for a little nostalgia hit. But I have so much to play already.
Yes, I think your backlog is
see how
big
much it actually
enough.
costs. Just going to check it out. Let me just...
No. Speaking of your backlog, I think it's time for gaming goals.
Gaming goals.
Because we have another challenge for you. It is time, Brendo, to step up to the plate and become human in Detroit.
At long last, I will become human.
Maybe that's what you need to cure that cough.
It feels so jarring having all of my friends and family having played this game before me. Let me tell you, this is not something I'm comfortable with because normally I like to be in control of the information. I absolutely despise spoilers in any form. Like I said,
and I could let them loose right now.
Detroit Become Human is the sort of game I knew from the start of its development announcement that I was going to play it. So I've gone dark on all media. I know nothing about it, basically. So I have like 6 people around me swirling like dangerous sharks that have all played this game. And I'm just like, I'm getting like an anxiety attack because I should be at the head of this controlling who knows what.
Does Nat know how to make you sweat or what?
Well, if Natalie was a little more controlled with her loose spoilering, it wouldn't make me sweat so much. But yes, I intend on playing through Detroit Become Human this week. Most likely Wednesday, Australian Wednesday, which could be different if you're listening overseas.
Possibly Tuesday afternoon, evening in the States.
But it will all be archived, unlike your Twitch session,
I
on
know.
my YouTube channel, which can be found at thegaminglovers.com. In addition, let me tell you, I believe there will be plenty of Spider-Man for me this week.
Yes.
That's probably going to steal the primary spot.
Maybe you should live stream a little bit of that too, just to show people your mad swinging skills.
I'm just self-conscious about my coughing at the moment. I keep getting the sticky lungs.
Well, you have until Wednesday to get rid of it.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So much pressure.
Under pressure. Ding, 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 ding.
And who knows, if I have a particularly long toilet stop or something, I might try to beat Fire Emblem Awakening.
Oh my goodness. Oh, while you are doing that, I'm going to try to continue to finish Persona 5 because I haven't really touched it while I've been playing Detroit Become Human. And Persona Q as well, continuing on with those. And maybe I might start a bit of Spider-Man, depends on what my mood feels like.
You are most welcome to. Just don't you dare overtake me. I can't handle if 2 games you overtaken me on. Drive me insane.
Guess what I'm going to be doing while you're asleep?
Oh, darn this feeble body of mine.
All I will say is when you do play Detroit Become Human, have fun working with Mr. Krabs.
Ah, yes.
From SpongeBob.
You did mention that.
Oh,
One of
man,
your
that made me
favourite
so
shows.
happy. So happy. And seeing his actual face, like, because all the main cast are actually have similar to LA Noire, where it's not just the motion capture that they did, but it's their faces.
A lot of them do that these days.
Yeah.
Let's not forget Willem Dafoe in the wonderful presentation of Beyond Two Souls that he did.
Mm-hmm. And Ellen Page and so many others. It seems to be quite the trend with David Cage. But not always the case. Occasionally he's used models for the motion capture and then actors for other parts. But
that happened with Madison in Heavy Rain, I believe. An actress played the model, but then they also had a voice over the top because the actress, although she looked good, couldn't voice act for peanuts.
And at least they recognise that. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. Oh, you're pretty enough. No one will care about the acting. Video games, we care about the acting. Thank you very much. I think that's it for all our gaming goals for this week. So keep posted. We will keep updating our social media accounts if and when Brendo gets live streaming. And maybe if you do happen to catch him live, help him make some of those tough choices in the game.
Excellent.
Or just egg him on with things to make him nervous.
Just no spoilers. All right, you can do the finale of this show by yourself. I'm going to play Spider-Man. I'll see you later.
Oi!
Bye, everyone.
Get back here. Bye, Inara.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.